Hey everybody, Adam Silverman here from MuleTown Digital. Today I want to do a quick talk about agency types. There are so many different types of agencies out there, and I've been privileged to coach agencies for the last 2 years to really dig into their businesses and kind of see under the hood of probably at least 50 to 100 other companies. And I've learned a lot in that process about the different kinds of agencies that exist, which has made it really great for MuleTown Digital for me to be able to figure out the best place for us to sit as a company, but also to help prospects when they're coming in the door to decide what agency is right for them, because it's not always us, right? Like, I wish it was. I wish we were perfect for every client in the world, but the fact is we are not. And just like when our prospects are coming in and they're comparing different agencies, it's always helpful to get some perspective on the different kinds of agencies there are. So I want to walk you through the different models and explain a little bit about how they work. So a full service agency is what we would consider MuleTown Digital. It's full service digital marketing. And that typically includes everything from branding to websites to post-launch services like care plans and maintenance, hosting, a lot of times, search engine marketing, PPC, paid social, content marketing strategies like email marketing, automating, AI implementation. I mean, the list goes on. Full service means you kind of cover the spectrum of services for clients. And this is kind of typically where we would sit. There are other types of agencies, we call them like the service focus agency. And the service focus agency is going to focus on a specific set of services. So you'll have, particularly SEO or creative or lead gen, like you'll have these different service sets where they are focused on what they provide. So the customer doesn't matter what kind of business they are. It doesn't matter if it's e-commerce or service or whatever it is. They're focused on generating leads or doing SEO or doing creative or doing PPC. And so they are kind of this service focus. They do what they do kind of specifically, but they do it for everyone. Then there's the specific niche. And so these are agencies that work with a particular niche. So like they will work with only construction companies or only dentists or only plumbers or only e-commerce businesses with digital products. Like they get the specific niche businesses, get down the niche rabbit hole typically really far. When you're looking at companies that do a niche, and a lot of times we'll get that question of like, well, we were going to do SEO with this agency that specializes in plumbers. Here's the thing. There's nothing wrong with a niche agency, and we have niche products inside of MuleTown Digital that are targeted at very specific service businesses or e-commerce businesses as well. There's nothing wrong with a niche. From a customer standpoint though, and what agencies like to do is use that niche. It's just a marketing ploy. So really what they are is a lead gen agency, but they're just marketing specific to plumbers or to electricians or whatever it is. It's not bad, but one thing to watch out for with those is a lot of agencies that do that stuff have one thing they'll deploy. So they're going to deploy the same website over and over again, the same marketing strategy over and over again. And so there's a lot of riches to be made in these niches, but a lot of times those contract lives with these kind of companies are real short, because what ends up happening is once all the basic building blocks are put in place, they don't have the same skills that a full service agency has. And so what ends up happening is you start to, as a business, need custom work and need custom strategy. These guys don't typically do that. It's like, oh, well, they need something that doesn't fall in the realm of our normal services, and it becomes too challenging. And so we end up picking up a lot of clients that go to a certain distance with this kind of agency, and then we end up picking them up because they just need more services. Then you've got the size variant of agencies. So you've got your typical, there's a couple different like layers to that. And I would say MuleTown Digital at this point is kind of a medium-sized agency. There are, the small, medium, large agencies. So small being like 3 or 4 people, medium's going to be 10 plus. Large could be 25 or 30 on up, and there are some really big agencies that I've had a chance to coach and work with, and there's some the nice thing about those big agencies is they have big reach. A lot of big agencies have big partnerships, they have big vendors, and so if you're a really big corporate and you need an agency to do everything, these large agencies are definitely a really good way to go. Now they're typically very expensive. So if you're going to pull in an agency that's got 30 or 40 employees, you can expect to pay probably 2 or 3 times as much as you would with a small or medium. The small agencies are great because they're a little less expensive and you get really focused attention, right? You get very, like they don't have 100 clients, they have 5. So you're going to get a lot of their attention, but you get a lot of attention, but their reach is much smaller. Mediums run the middle. They've got really strong vendors. They're medium in price. They're typically medium in size. And so for a lot of businesses, a medium-sized agency tends to work out really well, but there's advantages and disadvantages to going with a bigger or smaller agency. You also have what we call the trench coat agency. And the trench coat agency is a solopreneur or a solo business owner that is pretending to be a full-sized agency. And the way they do this is you have one person who does the sales and manages all the projects, and then they outsource everything. There's nothing wrong with this approach, and I have a lot of friends that run an agency that is just like that. The upside of this, again, is personalized attention. You're only working with one person, and that one person knows the ins and outs of your whole world, and they're usually a generalist focused on either design or dev or marketing or wherever they're focused. These guys are typically general, and so you get their undivided attention. We acquire a lot of agencies that are in this boat at MuleTown Digital where there is solo entrepreneur. The downside of that is you don't, as the customer, know who they're feeding the work to. So it's like who's actually doing the work, you don't know. It could be based on price, availability, timing, schedule, all those things. So you have to watch out for those agencies that look like they're an agency, but they're really not. And again, there's nothing wrong with the business model, but as the customers, I always tell people, we get a lot of people that come in, well, this other agency over here is so much cheaper or whatever. And when you look into it, it's usually this. And again, nothing wrong with it. It's fine. For some people, this is a really good fit, but you have to understand the reach or their capacity that they have is going to be much, much smaller because it's really just bound by the knowledge of that one person in the trench coat. The rest of the company is not really there, right? It's just white label providers and vendors, and you could have 4 different developers on a project because one starts it and doesn't know what to do and hands it to another. I mean, this is the great unknown when it comes to working with agencies. And then you have like what I would say are what we call the ultra niche, which is like we are a small SEO agency focused on electricians, right? So they are looking for electrician businesses in a very specific area, and they only work with that size client in that industry to do this one thing. Really, really great niches down here. And if you need a complete specialist for some reason, this is a really good way to go, because the people that do this kind of work, like if you're, say you're operating a horse race facility and they only work with gambling companies, just an example, that's a really good way to go because they're going to know the ins and outs of that. If HIPAA is super, super important and you absolutely need HIPAA compliance, working with an agency that only works with medical providers, for example, would potentially be a very smart way to go. A lot of the agencies up in this space will also have those same skills. They're just a wider set of skills. So for a lot of businesses, it's okay that the agency doesn't know everything about the gambling business because they know how to do marketing, and it doesn't matter the industry, they can do the marketing work. But there are some advantages to being in the ultra niche space from an agency standpoint, and as a consumer, not a bad way to go if you have a very, very specific need. So full service, service focused, specific niche, size variant agencies, and ultra niche. There's a lot of different agencies out there and a lot of different ways to go. The really big things to think about are, your needs as the client. What's your budget? What's your timeline? What are you trying to accomplish? How hard is what you're trying to accomplish? How flooded is your market? How competitive is your market? There's a lot of determining factors that will help you pick the right space. I always tell people, I feel like it's the team that's the most important thing when you're looking at agencies. Know what the team looks like. How many people are on the team? Who will I be working with? How many contacts do I have? What happens if I'm having trouble with this one project manager? Is there another one? Is there only one? You want to know those kinds of things so that you can make a good choice when it comes to working with an agency. You'll also find that agencies treat customers drastically differently. There is a very split approach that agencies take to customers. Split one is the hostage holder, and there's a lot of agencies that long-term contracts, they're going to hold you, they own your stuff. You got to watch out for those kinds of things when you're picking an agency. You want to know that if it's not working, can I exit this or am I locked in? And then you have the other path where MuleTown Digital sits, which is we only want to work with you if you want to work with us. So we don't do these long-term contracts because we find that a lot of times it just ties us into a situation we may not want or the client may not want. And so we like to earn that business month over month over month. They're just different methodologies when it comes to handling clients. And you also want to know what their strengths are. If you're hiring an agency and the goal is, you want to double the size of your business in the next 2 years, so you need leads coming in, they need to be able to do things like PPC and paid social and landing pages and CRO and all the things that are going to actually help you meet your goal. A lot of people come in and they're just they just look at price. They just go, well, this agency is $1,000 a month and this one's $4,000 a month, and I can afford the $1,000 a month one. And that's how people make decisions. The problem with that comes into play when the problem you're solving is a $4,000 a month problem, and you're trying to solve that with a solopreneur or a small sized agency that doesn't have the reach or the ability set to solve that problem. So before you try to pick an agency, the big thing to think through is what is the problem you're actually trying to solve, and then understand what do you need from a company to solve that problem. So many times people get caught up in either the price tag or the turnaround time or what people the agency works with, and we get a lot of questions around that. And the reality is we can do marketing for anybody. We can pretty much work with any business because principally it's not different from business one to business two. There are things to learn. There are customers and nuances and services. There's always something to learn. But that's true going from one plumber to another plumber. Just because we understand the industry doesn't mean that plumber A works the same as plumber B. So you have to be careful when you're comparing agencies that you're comparing apples to apples and that that the service sets are equivalent. We've had people come in looking at our care plans before and they're like, oh, well, we can get our website hosting somewhere else for $20 a month. And we're like, you absolutely can get hosting there. But they're not going to do maintenance. They're not going to take care of tickets for you. They're not going to adjust things on your website. They're just going to host your site and you have to maintain it. And a lot of times people think they're comparing our service set to something else and it's the same, and it's not, because it's a completely different thing that we're providing. So make sure you know what the agency that you're looking at is actually going to provide within that service set. I will tell you, when people talk about SEO or lead gen or websites, what one agency is talking about when they talk about SEO can be completely different from what another agency is talking about. One is talking about updating your Google business profile. The other one is talking about a full-blown location blast strategy, or they've got, networks of backlinks and all these bigger picture things. They're not the same. So if your need is for this little one, you don't want to hire this big company. But if you have a big company need and you hire a small company with small reach, you're not going to get any outcome. So it's cheaper, but you don't get anything out of doing the work. So that's why that's so important. I hope this helps kind of explain the different types of agencies that are out there. Like I said, we sit in full service, kind of medium size. Our clients range all over the board. We've worked with huge companies and tiny ones. We work with companies in all sorts of niches between e-commerce, service. It doesn't really matter. We kind of run the gamut. Our goal was to sort of help anybody that we liked and felt like we could help. And that's always been our mission, is good businesses, good people, and we get great outcomes. Make sure you know what you're looking at when you're looking at an agency so that you don't get burned. Thanks.